Hey there, this is Jeff. Welcome back to my table, which is a bit smaller than it used to be. Long story. Anyway, I'm back. Sorry for the long delay between videos. It's been a rough couple of months, but we don't need to go into that right now. Today I was fooling around with my Inktense pencils and trying to figure out how these things work in relation to coloring and using them with stamped materials. So I'll show you what I've been doing with them. You can decide if they're the kind of thing that you want, but this is a different medium than a watercolor pencil, okay? You need to remember that when you are using these pencils. They are a different medium altogether, but we'll get into that when I actually start doing the coloring. Let me show you what these look like. They're made by Derwent, which is a British company. And this is just your basic 24 pencil set. It comes in, I believe, 74 colors, 72 or 74 colors. And this is made up of water-soluble ink pigment inside the pencils. Not watercolor, not wax, not oil, but water-soluble ink. We'll get to that in a little bit. And but first, I need to make something to color in with these. So let me shift a few things around here, and we'll get on to it. Okay, today I have a little bit of watercolor paper in here. Now this is cold press paper. Now anybody who has ever used rubber stamps or photopolymer stamps will be immediately going, huh? Because normally you can't use that kind of medium with watercolor paper. Stamping just doesn't really work very well with it because of the texture of the paper. Well, that's one good thing about having a stamping tool like this. Is a mini MISTI, but if you have the Tim Holtz tonic stamping platform, a regular MISTI, and there are a couple other ones out there, this will make your life a lot simpler. Now, I just have a butterfly here with a little bit of a frond leaves. This is part of a set called Beautiful Day from Simon Says Stamp. And we're going to go ahead and stamp these. Now once I've got them laid out on the paper approximately where I want them, all you do is you close the lid, press down just a little bit so that they cling, and then lift them out. See how they kind of stick there? That's why I love this tool when using photopolymer stamps. Now I'm using for ink, this is VersaFine ink. The difference between VersaFine and another ink like Memento is this is dye-based ink. Dye-based ink will not work with Inktense pencils because since they need to be water soluble and this is dye ink, the ink will run if you tried using this. So don't use this for this. If you're coloring with Copics or pencils or anything else, just normal pencils, this is the stuff you want to use, just not in this case. So we are back to this. This is an oil-based ink, permanent, archival, and it's called an instant dry pigment pad. That's a bit of a misnomer. I've had problems. Also, this should not be used with Copics because Copics will dissolve the ink. It's just one of these things you learn from just using stuff over and over again. Now, because this is very strong ink, I'm not tapping too hard. I'm just putting a little bit on. Okay, and now you flip it over. I'm going to press down a little bit. Okay. Now you can probably see that this did not print as well as you might expect. And normally if you're doing a rubber stamping, you're going to take a look at that and go, oh, this is terrible, I'm never going to do this again, and you don't try it again. Well, here's where this type of tool comes in handy, because the paper has not moved and your stamps have not moved. You just get to re-ink it, close the door again, and you print right smack on top of the other one. You get absolutely no ghosting. It is brilliant. It is the best. Okay, I'll do a little bit more. And if this doesn't completely work, I'm going to leave some parts looking a little less than great. You might notice I have a little ink here. That's fine. That'll come right off. I've never had a problem with one of these tools overprinting. That actually looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but once we have it colored in and we've got some brushes and stuff on it, we'll be fine. All right, let me go get my brushes, or my one water brush and the Inktense pencils, and we can get going. Okay, now we're ready to do some coloring. Let's get down to it. All right, now the first thing I have here is a water brush. This I picked up at Michael's. This is a Tim Holtz water brush, but obviously any water brush will do. This water brush has a very fine tip to it, but use whatever water brush works for you. That's all there is to it. Now we have the Inktense pencils. These are just a selection. I'm not going to color the whole drawing for you, but enough to give you a representation of what I do, and you'll be able to then determine if this is the kind of thing you'd like to try. So, let's get on to it. Now, one thing I should tell you is that Inktense pencils, like I said, they're water-soluble ink. They are not watercolor. What does that mean? Well, that means that these things will not flow. Watercolor flows. Ink does not. It will go a little bit where you push it, but it will not flow like a watercolor. So if you're trying to like do a rainbow and then get everything to blend together, it's not going to do that. So go into that knowing that that's not what you're going to get. Now you can color the whole thing in if you like. You can also get just enough color by just putting it in the corner and then bringing it up, but I'll show you a couple things that I'm doing here. Now, if I was using a wax-based or an oil-based pencil, this is when I would bring in other colors and then layer or blend, but I'm not doing that quite yet. So let's go down to the butterfly. I'm going to make the bottom of this yellow. Just to show you what it's like when you use multiple pencils, especially when you're using two colors that are fairly close, like the yellow and orange that I have here. Now, I have seen videos, there are a lot of videos on using Inktense pencils, so if you're interested in how to use them for like freehand art, there are a lot of those. I've seen some people coloring stuff in from, say, the Joanna Basford books using these, so I thought I'd show you what I've been doing with them just as a contrast, and there should be enough other videos that you can look at that would give you a good idea as to whether or not this is something you'll want to use. Okay, so for this one I'll start with the orange down here. And what I do when I use these is I stay way inside the lines, because watercolor and water soluble anything has a way of going everywhere if you're not careful. Especially if you end up pushing it too far in one direction and then it all just goes everywhere. It goes to where you don't want it. And then you'll be sad and you'll say bad words. And some people that I've seen when they use these, they just put a little bit of color in the corner. I try to at least fade it out like a one color gradient that I've shown in other videos that I've done, because I want, in case some of it remains on the paper where I put it and it doesn't completely dissolve into the water, I want it to still kind of look like it's fading. Okay. Move those out of the way. Now, something else you're going to want to keep on hand is some paper toweling, something absorbent to blot onto, because this water brush can be quite drippy sometimes, or at least it has been in my experience. So let's start with the green here. Now, this is one where I just colored in with your basic green. So, okay, now you see how it's activating the color now, and it's looking a lot brighter. That's what Inktense will do. Now, if I had been using the Memento ink, this might have caused the edges to run. And we don't want to do that. Okay, and now I'll show you one of these blended areas here, this orange to red. Now, usually when I do a blend, again, I would encourage you, please experiment. Either take my advice, disregard my advice, or modify my advice. All are good. And then I'm going to blot that. Go back in for the red. Pull that down, blot it, and then we'll mix it here in the center. Now, the other problem when you're coloring with Inktense that you might run into is that you might sometimes need to let something dry before you move on to an area next to it, because you really don't want to get stuff running all over the place. So while that is drying, I'm going to go down here, show you how the greens blend here. Move this further up into camera range. But you see how once you add the water, it looks a lot brighter. And it's a lot more intense, hence Inktense. You can get some pull with it, is like in watercolor when you get it to flow from one area to another, but not quite as well as if it was actual watercolor paint. So figure out what it is you're trying to do first before you start doing anything else. See, that doesn't blend horribly well. And you can't really see this on camera just because I'm too close up, but every time I do a couple of swipes, sometimes I blot it just because there's so much extra water. Okay, now I'm going to go up here and work on this yellow. Since yellow is the lighter color, obviously you want to start here, just so that it maintains some of the brightness of the yellow without causing a mushy mix. And this time, instead of meeting in the middle, I'm going to bring it right up into the orange, like that. And there we go. Blow on it a little bit. So you might get a little bit of water here, but let me show you, get this a little bit closer. You can see what that looks like once it's been wet down and painted a little bit. That's what I did with the leaf. Just like that. So let me show you the back. This is just where I did a test of a pencil, but you can see it didn't soak through. Now, if you're using regular paper, even just regular, let's say 300-pound cardstock, you might run into some trouble where it might soak through depending on what kind of paper you're using. Test first before you create your masterpiece, as always. But there we go. I'll probably finish this and then post pictures on the blog. I'll update the information in the description box with that when I have it. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Jeff. This is my crafting area, and until we meet again, thank you very much. Bye-bye.